to this author's interview series. My name is Christina Theodoraki. I'm editor of Small Business Economics and Entrepreneurship Journal, and I have the great honor to interview today Douglas Cumming from Florida Atlantic University in America. And also, Douglas is also affiliated in the Birmingham Business School at the University of Birmingham in UK. Welcome, Douglas, and thank you very much for participating to this interview series and sharing your insights and knowledge with us today.
Likewise, thanks very much. It's great to join you. Thanks for having me.
Douglas is going to give us more insight on his paper entitled Mapping the Venture Capital and Private Equity Research, Bibliometric Review and Future Research Agenda. This article is published in Small Business Economics in October 2022. And this paper is co-authored by Douglas Cumming, Satish Kumar from Malawian National University of Technology in India, Weng Marc from Swinburne University of Technology in Malaysia, and Nitesh Pandey from Malawian National Institute of Technology in India. So starting my first question, Douglas, can you please tell us what is the article about?
Yes, thanks. It's as the title implies, we do a bibliometric analysis of private equity and venture capital. The two topics, private equity and venture capital, are really quite intertwined. You can't really study one without the other because a lot of it overlaps. And even these funds, the professionally managed funds, say if you're a private equity fund, sometimes you style drift and you do venture capital investments. And then even for venture capital funds, sometimes they do private equity investments. And so we review both types of investments and do a systematic analysis using rigorous methods, looking at all the papers in the literature. And we do that across the two fields where the journals publish these types of topics. So there's the finance angle, the finance journals, and then the entrepreneurship journals and management journals all publish these topics. And in some ways, the fields are segmented. So we felt it was very important to carry out this analysis.
Great. It's very important to know why is this paper important, or this article important, and what do we know from this article that we didn't know before from the research?
Well, as I alluded to earlier, the area of venture capital and private equity, those topics really are quite segmented by field. So some people, say working in the finance area, will write papers on topic without sort of acknowledging or referencing papers in entrepreneurship journals. And then the opposite can happen as well, albeit as we see in the data much less frequently. So for scholars that are looking to find the a really comprehensive overview of the topic, which are the important papers, who are the author groups that work on these topics, where do I find the research and where is the research going? So what types of novel trends do we see in terms of papers that are being worked on and the like? And so that type of review, really as a systematic review, has not been done before. And so we thought it was important and useful for other people that want to work in this area, both new PhD students and other professors that want to get into this area, to see where they could find the best research, which articles are being cited the most, and to help direct their research efforts.
Great. Before I ask you the question, where is the research going so in the future? Can you please, let me go you in the past. Can you please tell us and with our audience today, where did this idea came from?
Well, for this topic, for me to work in the area of private equity and venture capital, I got started in the area going back, 25 years ago, a long time ago. I'm feeling old these days. And I, back in the late 90s as a PhD student, I was very fortunate to have a class on financing the small firm taught in law school. I was a law student in Toronto back in the day, and I had a really great law professor, Jeff McIntosh, who taught this course, Financing the Small Firm, and he really encouraged me to get into this as a PhD topic, and that's how I got very excited about the topic. And back then, there were hardly anybody working in this area, and it was even more segmented back then than it is today. Now it's we have way more people working on in the field. We have a lot of great papers, a lot of great research coming out. There's really interesting push in the area of how venture capital intersects with fintech and sustainable investments. So those are some of the more novel trends and the push in recent years. Other things on work on contractual design, financial contracting, and how venture capital enables long-term value creation with different types of governance mechanisms. Those are some of the real sort of critical areas where it's important within the fields of venture capital and private equity, but also has implications for other people working in different related areas.
Excellent. Can you tell me where this field is going forth? What is your interest for next research, or some still missing research about venture capital or private equity that we should look more in depth?
Indeed, so we have a tendency as academics to be very siloed, especially in these areas of finance, because the way in which we gather data tend to be from data vendors. Not always, but go to a data vendor that sells you venture capital data, and then you know about the financing with venture capital, but you don't really know much else about the field and where the firm, who else they got money from, how that develops over time. And so it becomes a very siloed, segmented, narrow look at the growth of an entrepreneurial firm. And the reality is that entrepreneurs get money from a wide source of folks. So they get money possibly from crowdfunding, angel investors, venture capital and private equity possibility, factoring their accounts receivable, maybe some government support, maybe it's eventually become an IPO or acquisition, and all these areas which really overlap with one another tend to be not so much looked at in these academic studies. And so the better papers these days are really doing a good push forward to intersect these different fields, to see whether or not different forms of finance are complements or substitutes, how that helps the firms grow over time. And then it also can do a lot to inform public policy. So, when governments create, say, a venture capital program, they need to understand how that might impact other forms of finance that entrepreneurs might access. Or similarly, if they put in new regulation to support crowdfunding, there could be implications for how that impacts angel investment, venture capital investment, and other sources of capital that entrepreneurs might tap into. And so that's why this type of sort of state-of-the-art overview of the literature and understanding of where we're at and how things have evolved can help us better understand new research papers that we want to write in the future.
Excellent. You're talking about policymakers and venture capitalists. I was wondering, what is your major finding in application from a perspective of practitioners? What are your advices in best applying your findings? How we can apply your findings or avoid some mistakes? What are your recommendations on them?
Well, certainly in the venture capital literature over the years, there's been a lot of great work that has come out to help inform policymakers, and we review that work in our paper. The state-of-the-art type of analyses these days really look at the portfolio of programs that are being designed to help entrepreneurs, not just programs in isolation, but how the grouping of programs can go best towards helping entrepreneurs and their investors. And so the other thing is, apart from the portfolio design, looking more specifically at the venture capital programs, there are around the world, some governments have done this extremely well in designing programs that enable entrepreneurs to be successful. And then other countries have not done so well. So in designing programs that have turned out to be fatally flawed. And so if I can, pick on one country, because I'm Canadian, as the joke goes, I apologize, I couldn't help it. I was born there. All kidding aside, I really love the country. But unfortunately, we haven't done some. And so in that case, in that context, for example, we set up tax schemes that encourage retail investors, not institutional investors, but retail investors like you and I, to put money into these tax subsidized funds that have really done a terrible job in generating economic value added. And then they also can crowd out or displace other types of investors. And that's precisely the type of program that we don't want. Whereas other countries have had much more successful systems. For example, in Australia, they have had a limited partnership model where a government is a limited partner into a fund that's also encourages other limited partners to get involved and support those types of funds. And those have been relatively more successful. So countries that adopt one type of model can do pretty well, whereas others, the results can go in the opposite direction. So both of those angles are worth considering.
Thank you very much, Douglas. We are arriving at the end of this interview. I would like to personally thank you for sharing with us your insights on this article today. I would like also to encourage our readers to download your article, which is also in open access, so they can freely download from the website of Springer. I don't know if you have any last comments for the persons who read our audience. And for me, it was a great pleasure to have this interview today with you.
Well, thank you. It's really great to join you. And I should just add, over the years, I've had experiences with many journals, and I certainly found the review process, the editorial process, and the professionalism of small business economics to be first rate. I very much encourage other people to engage with and submit to the journal. It's been one of my favorite over the years, and I hope to keep working with you in the future. Thank you.